Today, we're going to dig into the ideas from a book called The Invisible Canyon. And really, it all comes down to one big question. What if the biggest changes in our lives don't come from some huge, heroic effort, but from something so small you can barely even see it? When you look at something massive like the Grand Canyon, your brain just automatically searches for a massive cause, right? Like a giant earthquake or some cataclysmic event. But the real story, well, it's way more interesting. That whole thing was carved by the quiet, steady flow of a river, just one tiny drop of water at a time, over millions of years. And that one idea, the power of the small and consistent, that's the key to everything we're about to unpack. So this really boils down to two completely different ways of making a change in your life. And most of us, probably without even realizing it, are walking around holding a stick of dynamite, just waiting for the big explosion. And this comparison just lays it out perfectly. The dynamite blast, yeah, that's your classic New Year's resolution, the crash diet, the I'm going to change everything overnight plan. It's this all-out attack that takes a ton of willpower and, let's be honest, almost always ends in burnout. But then you've got the water drop. It's a tiny, consistent effort. It doesn't look like much at first, but its power is in its persistence. It just doesn't stop. And this right here is so important. If you've ever tried to build a habit and failed, the book argues that it wasn't a failure of your strength or your willpower, it was a failure of strategy. You were just using the wrong tool. You don't need a bigger explosion. You just need to learn how to be like the water. Okay, so if we're going to use drops instead of dynamite, we need to know what a drop, or what the book calls a micro nudge, actually is. And it turns out there's a very practical formula for it. A proper micro nudge follows what's called the rule of 3 S's. First, it's got to be small, and that means it takes less than 2 minutes. Seriously. Second, it's specific. No vague goals, it has a time and a place. And third, and this is the secret sauce, it has to be stupidly easy. So easy that even on your worst, most tired day, you'd feel a little ridiculous not doing it. It's basically impossible to fail. So here's a perfect example of what most of us do. This isn't a plan, it's just a wish. Later isn't a time, and some is not a number. It's completely undefined, so it's basically setting yourself up to fail before you even start. And this is the game changer. See the difference? It's small. 2 push-ups takes, 10 seconds. It's specific. It happens right after you brush your teeth, maybe on the bathroom floor. And it's stupidly easy. You can't really argue with yourself about doing just 2 push-ups. This is a nudge that can actually survive a busy, stressful day. All right, so now we know what a good nudge looks like. But how do you make it automatic? How do you make it stick? Well, the next big idea is a bit of a bombshell. Willpower is totally overrated. The real key is designing a world around you where the right choice is the easiest choice. And honestly, that is so freeing to hear, right? We treat willpower like this muscle we have to constantly flex, but it's really more like your phone battery. It just gets drained as the day goes on. So trying to rely on it to make good choices late at night, that's a losing battle. So what's the alternative? You become an architect of your own environment. Instead of trying to force the river to flow uphill, you just reshape the land a little bit so the water naturally flows where you want it to go. It's all about making good habits easier and bad habits harder. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is a technique called habit stacking. The idea here is brilliant. You're not trying to create a brand new routine from scratch. You're just linking a small new gear, your micro nudge, to a big, powerful habit that's already spinning every single day. And the formula for it is dead simple. After I pour my morning coffee, I will write 1 sentence in my journal. Or after I take off my work shoes, I will stretch for 1 minute. You're basically letting the momentum of a habit you already have carry the new one forward without any effort. Now, we have to talk about what is probably the hardest part of this whole thing. It's that moment when you've been consistent, you've been doing your nudges every day, but you look around and it feels like nothing's changed. This phase actually has a name, and just knowing the name can be a game changer. It's called the plateau of latent potential. It's that super frustrating time when it feels like your efforts are going nowhere, but really all that work is being stored up just beneath the surface. This is where most people quit, because they think it's not working. The ice cube effect explains this perfectly. Imagine you have an ice cube in a room that's 27 degrees. You put in effort, warming the room to 28, 29, 31 degrees, and what happens? Nothing. The ice is still solid. It looks like all your effort is being wasted, but all that energy is being stored. And the second you hit 32 degrees, boom, a breakthrough happens, and all that stored potential gets released at once. Your results aren't denied, they're just delayed.
So if you can't rely on seeing results to keep you motivated, what do you rely on? This is where the real payoff comes in, the identity shift. Every tiny nudge you do, every 2 push-up session, every sentence you write is like casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become.
And this just makes the whole thing feel so much more achievable. It's not about being perfect. It's not about winning in a landslide. You just need to win the election by one more vote. You just have to show up for the new you more often than you show up for the old you. Each time you do your nudge, you're literally giving your brain proof of your new identity.
So let's bring this all home. We've gone from the massive scale of a canyon all the way down to a tiny 2-minute action. The last question is pretty simple. How do you start your own river? It's all about reframing our ambitions. These huge achievements we dream about, they're not the result of huge actions. They are the compound interest of tiny, consistent drops of effort. You're not trying to build a canyon today. You're just responsible for that next drop of water.
So I'll leave you with the same challenge the book poses. Forget about next week. Forget about tomorrow. What's the one stupidly easy thing you can do in the next 5 minutes that casts a vote for the person you want to be? Because that's really all it takes. The entire, vast, invisible canyon of who you're going to become, it begins with that one single, simple choice you make right now.